The Horror Eternal presents the Blackcast. I'm sitting here with this knife in my hand, and I'm trying to remember, why am I sitting here with this knife in my hand? I'm scared of this cold object in my frozen grip, scared all over, and my thoughts are racing, telling me lies, jumping to conclusions. There seems to be some disagreement between them as to exactly why I am sitting here with this knife in my hand. There was a phone call. I remember a phone call. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered, seeing that I had spoken to someone from that number before. A woman's voice spoke in a conspiratorial whisper. "Have you heard the podcast?" "Podcast? No. Who is this?" I replied. "I'll text you the link." The line went dead. My phone vibrated and a text was there, a link enclosed. The Blackcast, it said. No image, just the text on a black background. Who's sending me a podcast link, I thought. Some kind of spam, I guess. Viral marketing campaign. I hate ads, obtrusive attempts to draw my attention to something I don't care about in order to take my money. But something about this was actually kind of intriguing. No, more like attractively disturbing. I clicked the link and my screen opened up to an episode. There was only one. The title was Thoughts on Your Thoughts. I hit play. It began with a strange guttural hum, a kind of hypnotic chant. It was peaceful, but as I listened, I noticed something faint underneath the vibration, very low. I turned up the sound. Something was there, but I couldn't make it out. Turned it up all the way. Still couldn't make it out over the distortion of the audio, but something was definitely there. Audio glitch, I guess. Just as I was ready to click out of the whole thing, the hum stopped and a voice started speaking. "Thoughts on your thoughts. Let's talk about those thoughts you're having. You know, the ones that hide behind your inner dialogue. The ones that you block out, pretend you don't hear. The ones that say the things you don't want to hear. Where do they come from? You know that you're speaking to yourself, daydreaming, rationalizing, regretting. But then there it is. Another voice speaking to you from behind the curtain, interjecting, intruding, sometimes even oppressing. You hear it, but you shut it out. Pretend it isn't there, even though its words are very clear. Why does it say the things it says? And what does it say? What if I told you this voice was your true self, the voice unrestrained by rules, laws, responsibility, morality, and all manner of things imposed on you by society, by others? The reason you are listening to my voice right now is because you and I have spoken before, and we have an agreement with that other voice. I know you don't remember speaking to me before. What am I talking about? But ask yourself, why did you accept my call in the first place? Because it was from a number you've spoken to before, So you know that this is true. The tone you heard at the beginning of this broadcast was a signal, a beacon to the other voice calling it forward, notifying it that its time is finally at hand, because you have asked me to release that voice, that frightening thing, that shadow inside yourself, and release it I have. I shut it off, deleted the text, someone's idea of a sick joke. When did I speak to someone at that number anyway? And who? It's not a number I recognize, not a saved contact. I checked the date of the call, 2 days before. Didn't remember speaking to anyone on the phone that day. I deleted the record and the number, went about the rest of my day and did my best not to think about it anymore, writing it off as some kind of viral advertising spam for their shitty podcast. That night, I put it all behind me. Funny how quickly disturbing events can be swept out of consciousness these days. But then I find a lot of that as a kid who grew up in a chaotic household where you never knew who was going to blow up next, so the isolation of your room became a refuge from uncertainty. Then, in the middle of my nightly solo Netflix and chill, I got a text. Guy I've known for a long time. Someone I've known all my adult life. Haven't seen him in years. Haven't spoken on the phone, but we text daily. Charles. I opened it up and read, "Dude, have you heard this podcast? There's a new episode. We've never discussed a podcast in our entire lives. I don't listen to podcasts, and as far as I knew, neither did Charles. No sooner did I read the last word of the first, another text popped up, this one with a link to a podcast, the Blackcast, episode 2. You listened to this? I texted back, then I waited. No answer, no answer, no answer. Meanwhile, the black thumbnail stared back. I clicked the link despite myself. What's the second episode about anyway? I told myself to shrug off the unsettling urge. The title read, Thoughts on the You Inside of You. Self-help podcast from hell, I scoffed to myself, then clicked play. It began with the same hypnotic chant. Once again, I noticed something faint underneath the vibration, very low, and turned up the sound. As before, I boosted the audio, but couldn't make out the actual words. Only a very faint hiss, like a whisper. Then it ended, and the host began to speak. Let's talk about your inner voice. You know, the one that tells you who you are. The one that fills your mind with the same old stories you call memories every day to remind you of the things that have made you who you are. The stories that lead you to that comforting conclusion you wrap yourself in like a warm blanket. A safe identity that keeps the other thoughts away. The dangerous ones, the ones that scare you, the ones whose suggestions feel like truth, the ones that give shape to a fuller, more complex being than you might be comfortable inhabiting. A kind of being you're not allowed to consider might just be the truth. Are you really the person you think you are? Are all those opinions and reactions truly yours? Can you say that for sure when those thoughts are coming from somewhere else? Somewhere outside yourself. You know this because you can hear those thoughts. You can debate those thoughts, form an opinion of said thoughts, all of which you use to determine how you react to the world around you. The question is, if someone is telling you those things, who is listening? I shut it off. I get it. Who's the boogeyman inside me? Boo. Whatever. I was sick of the mind games and just wanted to lay my head on the pillow and forget it all. Go to sleep and this will all go away, I told myself. A voice in my head told me. I woke in the night from a tumultuous sleep, some kind of strange situation, arguing involved with someone familiar, a house in the darkness, something unsettling within, secrets unmentionable, hiding in the shadows of subconscious goblins, a shaking finger, twitching and chortling, accusations and sweat, suddenly driven out by the sound of knocking at the door. It was quiet when I came to the realization I'd been dreaming and was now returned to my familiar world. I listened. Nothing. I got up and walked down the hallway, eyes adjusted to the dark, looked around the front room. Quiet. And went back to my bed, writing off the phantom sound as a remnant of the passage between the worlds of dreaming and waking. Another set of illusory circumstances swallowed my consciousness as soon as my head hit the pillow. I jerked to a waking state, spontaneously wiping some other fitful existence from my mind completely. I sat up, listened. Nothing. The same stoic silence answered back. I didn't get up this time, just laid my head back down and listened. I had an unsettling feeling that said I didn't want to leave the safety of the covers, feeling that if I didn't move, whatever was calling would just give up and go away. Irrational, I know, but in the moment, it was the only thing tethering me to any modicum of sanity. I awoke to the blinding sun stabbing away the discomfort of the previous evening, looked at the clock, startled to read I'd been out for a full 12 hours. Shaking off the haze of the night before, I immediately took a shower and headed out to take care of a few errands and grab some food. Quiet day, me and my thoughts. No texts from anyone, all quiet. There comes a point when the phone is silent that I find myself becoming uncomfortable. A kind of insecurity creeps in, loneliness of the no-text runner. I shot off some links to a few people I text with regularly, benign human interest stories, feigning some manufactured disgust or snark, just looking for a response, but there was none. I mean, it's not unusual on a Saturday. People have things to do, family, activities, whatever. Still, I always hate that feeling. I looked at Charles's name on the text screen, considered texting him, but thought better of it. I stopped at a busy lunch spot for a burger. The tumultuous clamor of the other customers filled the air. I was scrolling on my phone when I heard something in the chattering hum, something familiar. Couldn't place it. I arrived back at my place in the evening. Still no responses to my texts. I opened the text chain with Charles, sent him one of the links I'd sent out earlier. Tick, tick, tick. No response. A momentary loss of self-control marionetted my fingers across the keyboard. Is there a new episode of the show that would get a response, restore in me some small measure of control? But there was no response. I spent a few hours flipping through the Netflix catalog of bland to uninteresting offerings, all the while trying to push back the voice of that damned podcast host rattling around like a neglected banshee in my thoughts. Two minds, one going through the motions of a monotonous and ultimately self-defeating task, the other listening to the host's voice from the Blackcast, trying to block it out, but considering. I woke from pure blackness, stillborn death of the ego self, as if no time had passed. It took a moment to realize I'd fallen asleep in front of the TV. The burning haze of the morning sun returned to jab at me through the blinds. I sat up, clicked off the idle screen, and pushed up from the couch. Stepped to the door, expecting to grab a package from the hallway. I unlatched and swung it open, only to be met by two hard faces staring back. An older man with a graying buzz-cut head and piercing black eyes, and a younger woman, hair equally buzzed, stare just as penetrating, both clad in casual suits, his gray, hers brown. The man held up a wallet containing a badge and his picture. Mr. Contese, I'm Detective Merrill, and this is my partner Cole. We'd like to ask you some questions regarding a case, if you don't mind, he said. I felt my insides go cold. Suddenly, I wasn't in my body anymore. Case? What kind of case? I asked. He replied, Are you friends with Charles Guest? Charles. His name shook something loose in my mind, connecting the missing dots. I hadn't heard back from him since the podcast link on Friday night. My momentary disorientation deepened as the realization collided with the reality of the two officers at my door. Yes, he's a friend of mine. Haven't seen him in a long time, but we text. Is something wrong? I asked. The gruff-looking Cole replied, Did Charles text you 2 nights ago around 9:20? I answered, Yeah, he did. Merrill cut in. What were the contents of that text, if you don't mind us asking? It was a link. I reached into my pocket as I spoke and pulled out the phone. Yeah, a link, some kind of podcast. I tapped open the text thread and showed them. Both studied the text for a moment, then looked back at me. Cole asked, Where were you Friday night when you received the text, Mr. Contese? I responded, right here in my apartment. Cole continued, Did you go anywhere that night before or after the text? No, I didn't go anywhere. I went to work that day, but came straight home after. I was here all night. Cole went on. Did Charles mention anything that might tell you who he was meeting up with, where he might be going, anything that could be of use to our investigation? No, sorry. He was just telling me about the podcast. He was pretty excited about it, but that's about it. I replied. Honestly, I didn't even go to the link. Merrill took a card from his breast pocket with his name and information on it and handed it to me. Okay, thanks for your help, Mr. Contese. We appreciate your cooperation in this matter. I took the card, fingers fumbling and dropping it to the floor. I bent down to grab it as I started to speak. What is this matter regarding? Something wrong? Merrill responded, Something's wrong, yes. Your friend, Mr. Guest, was found deceased yesterday evening. Charles appears to have been dead for at least 24 hours prior. We're just trying to figure out who he might have been talking to. We pulled his phone records and your number came up. We've yet to recover his phone. My fingers couldn't quite catch the card against the floor. I flicked at it as a rush of shock and anger washed over me. Oh my God, how could you not tell me that? You were gonna leave and not tell me my friend is dead? What's wrong with you? I snapped as my body jerked upright. He cleared his throat with a hog's snort. You're absolutely right, Mr. Contese. I should have led with that information. I do apologize for my lack of consideration. I hope you'll forgive me. Just concerned and a little too focused on the facts. Again, please excuse my indiscretion. He's a dick, Cole interjected. Let us know if you think of anything we might have missed. Have a nice day. I responded in disbelief. You just told me my friend was murdered. Have a nice day? Cole responded. Oh, I'm sorry, figure of speech. The job. We see this kind of stuff every day. We forget how disturbing it is for civilians. Please, accept my apologies once again. I'll just shut my mouth and we'll be on our way. You have our card. She motioned to the card stuck in the floor panel as they turned to depart. I bent down and flicked at it again. Stubborn, then paused, took a breath, and slid my fingernail underneath the corner. My mind was racing. I felt sick. I felt frightened. I felt such a rush of confusing emotions I couldn't think straight. My head filled with questions and worry and backtracking. All manner of inner voices trying to speak at once. I walked back to my room, legs wobbly, weak. At the bed, I gave in to the instability and dropped into the mattress. I lay there a moment, head face down, the hot air of my breath against the covers oppressing my features. Quiet, the deafening silence pounded down on me. The world seemed to have come to a stop. A sudden wave of restlessness electrified my nervous system. My feet kicked, and I turned myself over, reading the phone above my face. I tapped open the text thread with Charles, tapped the cursed episode link, and watched it open to the podcast landing page where I discovered episode 3 had dropped. Title read, Special Guest. I pulled myself up against the headboard and took my earbuds from the night table and popped them in. I paused for just a moment, unsure, then tapped play. This time, the faint sound underneath the vibration began to form words. I turned up the sound and listened closely, trying to make it out. Yes, words, but distorted, off somehow. I couldn't make them out. It ended, and the host began to speak. Getting to know your true self. A conversation. For this episode, I've invited a special guest in furtherance of that goal. But I'll stop short of a formal introduction and allow us to play a little guessing game as to who we're speaking to. Good morning. Thank you for making time to be with us today. Without giving your name, why don't you say hello to the audience? Another voice asked faintly, Should I, in my own voice, or... Yes, please. Just relax and speak in your normal voice. Okay. The other voice cleared their throat. Hello, thanks for having me. It can't be. We hadn't actually spoken in a while, but... I should mention that you're our first guest. The host cut in. Oh, okay. Well, I'm privileged. The voice. Unmistakable. Have you guessed who this is, dear listener? The host asked. Charles. I spoke out loud on blood-curdling instinct. That's right. It's your erstwhile friend, Charles Guest, said the host as if he'd heard my voice. Hi, Charles said.
So, Charles,
the host continued.
You're with us today to discuss a certain friend of yours out there in podcast land. Someone you feel is, how would you say, inauthentic.
Not living his true self, Charles responded.
Right.
The host concurred. Inauthentic would imply a conscious choice, Charles continued. In his current state, he's as authentic as he knows how to be. But that authenticity is merely the product of a lifetime of choices made in an effort to cover up what lies beneath, to disguise his true self, those urges and desires that make the blood beat in his heart.
Exactly the condition this podcast was created to dissect and disassemble,
the host commented. Exactly. It was listening to your show that helped me break through. You showed me the way.
It's our pleasure. It's what we at the Blackcast are here for, to crack open the door in the wall of the facade.
That bloody wall, Charles said, a sudden darkness in his tone.
Dripping,
the host added, just as dark a tone flooding his voice. But Charles is the officers. When was this recorded? I thought. Charles went on. They're natural impulses, you know? I mean, everyone has them. We just push them down. Don't listen to the voice.
Most, yes, but not the select few who are freed from their shackles,
the host interjected.
If they only knew,
Charles said dryly. They said 24 hours. Charles appeared to have been dead for at least a day.
Let's get into a little detail.
The host jumped in.
Tell us, where is the first time you remember having one of these urges?
An urge, Charles said, thinking. I don't really know the first time, but there was this one time. Still have flashes of it to this day. I was maybe 3, 4 years old. Our cat had a litter in the garage. My mom made a comfy little box with a blanket for them. I would sit and watch them crawling around, nursing. Then one day, I brought my mother's scissors out with me. I was curious what would happen if I cut one of the kittens in half. Honest curiosity. And so I took one, put it between the blades, and squeezed the handles together. It twitched and made a squealing sound. The blade didn't cut it in half like I'd expected. It was hard to cut. The blades got caught on bone and muscle. There was blood all over, messy. I hadn't considered what might come out. I guess in my mind it would slice perfectly in two like a doll. Instead, it was gruesome. Not sure what to do with the unexpected mess, I put the mangled body back in the box with the siblings and hid the scissors at the bottom of a storage container. I went inside and cleaned up. Later, I overheard my parents saying the mother had eaten one of the kittens. They never mentioned it to me directly.
Do you remember how you felt at the time or after?
I think that I felt nothing other than the surprised confusion at the messy reality. I felt nothing. If anything, just curiosity, Charles answered.
And what about after? Did you think about it?
No, not really. I don't think so. Not until much later when I was older, when the curiosity returned.
Did you do anything similar as a child, or when you got older?
No, nothing that I acted on anyway.
But thoughts?
Yes, thoughts.
Tell us about them. Give us an example.
When I was 16, my dad and I went on a camping trip. We had these big knives, Bowie knives, for carving, whittling, cutting up the fish we'd caught for dinner. And when I held that knife and I was near my dad, I would get the strangest thought, nagging, continuous, a compulsion to stab my dad with that knife. I never acted on it, of course, but the urge, the visions in my head were strong, demanding.
Like rays of your true self shining through a break in the clouds of the false self.
I would come to understand that, yes. Come to know true liberation.
And you, dear listener, does this sound familiar to you? I'd be willing to guess that it does.
Something grabbed me by the guts, twisting, a violent echo.
Tell you what, Charles, before we go any further, let's open up the conversation to the listeners. If you're listening right now and you have a similar experience to Charles here, those unsubtle urges nipping at your metaphysical heels, give us a call and share your experience. The number is...
I clicked off the podcast window. I'd heard enough. I mean, everyone's had a weird thought here and there in their lives. It's just the mind extrapolating things. An antiquated self-defense mechanism doesn't mean you're going to do anything about it. If we started prosecuting people for their errant thoughts, the whole world would be in jail. But Charles was dead. He went on some fucked up podcast talking about some psycho shit. I mean, had the cops heard this? Did the creepy host know he was dead? I swiped open the call screen, typed in the numbers, waited as the hollow ring repeated several times before being punctuated by a click.
Hello, caller. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Came the host's voice on the other end of the line. I pushed out a hesitant response. I wasn't expecting... Are you on the air?
We're streaming right now, caller. Do you have an experience you want to share with us? Have you felt urges like the ones Charles has been describing?
2 detectives came to my apartment this morning. They told me Charles is dead. I blurted out, the dam bursting inside. The host chuckled, dismissive.
Well, that must have been some experience, caller. Not exactly on topic, but definitely noteworthy. Wouldn't you say, Charles? I would.
Charles? I responded, a wave of confusion constricting my chest. So you're okay then? The police, they made a mistake.
No, there's no mistake.
Charles responded flatly. What do you mean?
You don't remember. We met up Friday night. I took you to the old house behind the big house at the end of the street to see Miss Lepsis.
The name sends a wave of cold terror crashing in on me, releasing the memory, releasing the horror. My chest tightens, can't breathe. Lungs struggle to catch a breath. Oh my God, oh God, oh God.
Are you there, caller?
The host asked. Then the dry heat, my temperature suddenly boiling, sweat on my brow, beads running down from my forehead into my eyes, burning them shut. I forced them open against the acidic assault. Blurred images warp and distort ahead of me. More perspiration finds its way into my mouth, choking me with the taste of bitter despair. And I remember. It's night. A cricket symphony of dread fills the air. A dog barks a mournful accompaniment. The image of Charles walking just ahead of me in the middle of the street materializes through the searing moisture in my eyes. Oh, where are we going again? I ask, memory still hazy. I remember something about a person he wants me to meet. Yes, more images come back through the haze. The knocking at my door. I'd listened to some of the podcast link Charles had sent. It made me queasy. I'd just gone to lie down when I heard the knocking. I answered, suffering a mild start to find Charles staring back at me. We hadn't seen each other in a while. He looked a little different. Longer hair, maybe a few extra pounds, but basically the same. There was a frantic air about him as he spoke. Yeah, you listened to the Blackcast? What'd you think? It's good, right? Compelling. Sure. I listened to some of it. Yeah. Sometimes you have to listen in spurts. I get that. It can be exhausting dredging up that you that's submerged down there in the blackness. I guess so. So, what's up? How have you been? You want to come inside? No. I was thinking. You want to go somewhere? It's not too far. There's someone you have to meet. He said, something ominous betraying his enthusiasm. But despite my unease, I acquiesced to his request with no objections. And now here I am, walking up this dead-end street, following Charles's manic lead. Darkness covets the fir trees lining our path, the only light a faint echo from the street lamps we left far behind. Why did we park all the way down the street? Couldn't we have driven up here? I ask, wiping my drenched brow to clear my eyes. Gotta keep it low pro, somebody'd see the car. He replies. The gravel crunches under our feet, each step a confession as we come to the end of the street. My heart beats hard to get out of my chest as Charles leads me to a tall, wrought iron fence, its Victorian spikes reaching out for relief from the suffocating pressure of the starless sky. Wait a minute, this is someone's house. We're going to climb the fence? What are we doing? I question. Charles clasps his palm around the steel posts and begins to climb. It's okay, nobody lives here. It's abandoned. Nothing's gonna happen. With an inward breath, I squeak my reply. I'm not comfortable with this. There's a seismic shift in his tone. Don't be a pussy, dude. Nothing's gonna happen. Miss Lepsis, the lady we're going to see, she's in the back house. Then, with a whisper, she'll make sense of all those thoughts in your head. I feel my breath quicken, dread coiling around my insides. Charles is already climbing. I force myself to follow, the cold metal against my palms, rust biting into my skin. My foot slips and I feel my jeans catch on a spike. I tug, but the fence holds tight. I'm stuck, I spit out, straining against the selfish grip. I yank harder until the sound of ripping fabric rends the night. Frustration and fear wrestle for control as I finally free myself, leaving behind a tattered tribute. I drop to the other side. The yard is overgrown with weeds, branches and junk strewn about. The grass whispers caution as I follow Charles towards a patch of trees huddled together beneath the forbidding silhouette of the front house. As we approach, a dilapidated cottage reveals itself in the gloom, its wood soiled with age and neglect, windows staring out from vacant orbits. This is it, Charles says as he steps up to the doorway. He grabs the knob and twists, but the blackened wood of the door is swollen with moisture and stuck in its frame. Charles grips the handle and begins jerking and pulling with all his might, but it refuses to budge. Nerves rattle in my throat. Why don't you just knock? She's expecting us, right? She comes when she's called, but you have to be inside for her to hear you. He replies, lungs pumping for breath. He kicks the door once, twice, then slams his shoulder into it with a running start. It finally gives with a tortured groan, swinging open to expose a beckoning void. The smell hits me first, a mix of mold, decay, and something unnameable. I've heard about the stench of a rotting human body. I can only imagine it's something like this. Flies buzz, a manic choir thrashing about in the air. A wave of insect bodies clatter about beneath our feet. The floor creaks under our weight, each step a protest against the intrusion. Charles reaches forward until his grip meets a string dangling in the blackness. He tugs and a single bulb flickers to life, etching out its horrors and long, mockingly deformed shadows. The cockroaches and beetles scuttle away in the cold stare of the accusing light. The room is sparse, a nightmare of dry rot and mold, wallpaper peeling like the skin of a decaying corpse. There is a wooden table carelessly painted over in thick brushstrokes of black paint, a wood-carved chair at its side, perhaps once regal in its day, now arthritic and mangled, its stuffing spilling out. In the back wall, an ominous passage to another room jeers back, teasing with a black smile of menace and bad intentions. I feel a boiling in my stomach, acidity and revulsion, sickness at existence. The feeling wells like vomit in the back of my throat, but I force my thoughts away from the desire to release the disease within. Charles goes to the table and grabs something lying unseen in the shadows. He raises a knife, its blade rusted and stained, the edge jagged. My stomach revolts once more at the sight. He turns to me with the smile of a playful child. These urges, you have them. His words penetrate, conspiring with something deep inside, something hidden. I'm stricken with pangs of resentment, an anger lashing out with daggers of vicious self-loathing. I shout in defiance of this sudden inner turmoil. Put that down, Charles. You're freaking me out. He shoves the knife into my hand, the metal cold, the rust rough against my skin. Then he moves to the center of the room, his eyes wild with a kind of frenzied excitement, and begins to hum, the sound low and resonant, filling everything with its unholy vibration. He chants, The same sickening dirge from the podcast that raped my mind with questions and fears of things hidden behind my conscious thoughts. Shadow thoughts of another me. But here, in this forsaken place, it's different. It's a call, a summoning. He continues, the tone flattening, a guttural bell tolling. I feel it. That same hum from the podcast, not just in my ears, but in my mind. Voices joining in, whispers from the depths of my psyche. They grow louder, joining with Charles's voice, a chorus of the damned driving their way into my skull, softly at first, then growing louder, becoming a chorus of kill, kill, kill. The sound swells, the walls tremble with it, the air defiled by its sinister tone. The chant crescendos, then abruptly cuts off. A threatening echo lingers, then silence. A silence as loud as the chant it usurped. A loud thump from the back room accosts my senses. What was that? I ask, terrified of the answer lurking on the other side of the question. Charles's only response is a crooked grin. Another thump. I stare into the darkness of the back room. Something is moving in there. Charles cries out, a nervous excitement in his voice. It's me, Miss Lepsis. I brought you a visitor. Come out and meet him. I'm frozen. My mind begs my limbs for flight. There is a soft, unsettling shuffle from the back room, a chattering across creaking boards. A pitiful old woman, her hunchbacked frame draped in a tattered and stained gray dress, scampers out from the darkness with a jitter reminiscent of the fleeing insects. Her long, bony arms stretch outward, leathered skin taut, elbows bent, fingers splayed. My gaze catches on the matted clumps of stringy white hair on top of her head, then slides down to a face furrowed in wrinkles. As the shadows shift with her hectic movement, I realize that something's not right. I trace the hardened contours of the bony jaw, sunken cheeks, and crooked nose. But the space between the bridge of the nose and the forehead is compressed in on itself. There are no sockets and no eyes. A bizarre clicking erupts from her mouth. Cold, primitive, animalistic, and disturbingly accusatory. Her body jerks and shifts, shoulders and hips swinging in violent opposition, a macabre tandava of flailing limbs, her cadaverous finger waving and pointing at me. The alien clicking burrows into my mind, a hideous psychic assault. Her tiny feet skitter towards me, startling me into a state of paralysis. She raises her finger and presses it to the middle of my forehead and holds it there. Then she opens her mouth and a thick black mass covered in a viscous tar-like substance spills out, splashing to the floor between us, spattering me in its wake. A wave of nausea cuts through me, then a burning wells up in my stomach. An acidic revulsion explodes inside of me, and something thick kicks up from my guts, filling my throat. I gag, choking as I heave and sweat, forcing it out. A black mass like the one from Miss Lepsis slides from my throat, into my mouth, and out onto the floor. Yes, push it out. Push out the false self. Regurgitate control. Embrace the freedom of the true self. Charles shouts with disturbing glee. The sound of his voice strikes a rage inside of me. Fury, anger, weak. He sounds weak to me, and everything inside me rejects the weakness, hates the weakness, fuels me to wipe out the weakness, destroy it, dominate it. I'm suddenly aware of the cold steel in my hand and step forward, plunging it into Charles's stomach. My entire being is swathed in a wave of sickening satisfaction. Yes, you're free. Strike out again. Drive the weakness out, he screams, voice quivering with delight. I pull the blade out and fitfully slam it into his chest, shoulders, arms, and neck over and over again in a frenzied rage of bloody fury. Every thrust brings release, a liberation from the shackles of my own mind. Humanity, I realize, is a prison, and with each strike, I break free of its bonds. Charles continues his hysterical shouts of encouragement until his ravaged frame collapses to the floor, the final flicker of perverse ecstasy extinguished from his gaze. Miss Lepsis is still, quiet, a wind-up toy whose spring has run out. She recedes into the darkness once more like a nightmare upon waking, its meaning fracturing and breaking down in the cold, hard light of lucidity. I feel a sudden weakness in my limbs, my will deflating beneath me. I stumble back, catching myself on the table, steady myself with its weight and collapse into the chair. The silence is oppressive, the only sound my labored breathing, my mind a labyrinth of confusion and horror. It takes a few blank minutes for me to realize I'm staring at a body on the floor, the room awash in the spray of vital fluids. I look at the knife in my hand. A vague sense of cause and effect beats a soft pulse from the depths of consciousness. I study the back wall. There was something. I remember a doorway and darkness, but only the worn and half-stripped daisy pattern of wallpaper and pitted wood stares back. Finally, words form once again, breaking free from the static in my mind, and I think to myself, why am I sitting here with this knife in my hand? And I try to remember. If you have enjoyed this program, please like, review, and share. Spread the word. The Horror Eternal presents The Blackcast. Written, produced, and performed by Roy Burdine. Sound design and mix by Mark Labib. The Horror Eternal and The Blackcast are copyright 2025 Roy Burdine. This has been a Spiral Opus audio production. Also from Spiral Opus, don't miss Mindraker, Background Anger, the story of a psychic assassin on a mission from God. Season 1 available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Monster Forge. We make monsters.